Good afternoon. I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital desk. We're going to be taking you live to the State House in Columbus, where Ohio Governor Mike DeWine going to be going over the newly signed $86 billion budget for fiscal year 24 and 25. Let's take you live to Columbus.
Early in the morning on July 4th, I signed into law the state budget. It's a budget that, like our first two budgets, is really an investment in the people of the state of Ohio. I want to first thank the General Assembly for their work, their shared commitment to providing greater opportunities for all Ohioans and to ensure that all Ohioans have the ability to live up to their God-given potential. I want to thank Speaker Stevens, President Huffman, as well as members of the Conference Committee, House Finance Committee Chair, and bill sponsor Jay Edwards, as well as Senate Finance Committee Chairman Matt Dolan. They all did an excellent job. Let me talk about a few of the items contained in this historic budget. We'll start with nursing homes. With this budget, we are poised to really make a profound impact on the lives of millions of our older Ohioans, particularly those who are living in nursing homes. In my State of the State address in January, I pledged to address the issue of Ohio nursing homes. I said, I quote, "Sometimes there are preventable tragedies caused by systemic problems in the nursing home, including poor infection prevention and control, medication errors, failure to provide care, and sometimes even elder abuse." I promised at that time to appoint a task force to examine the quality and accountability in our nursing homes. I want to thank that task force for the job that they did. That task force came back with very meaningful and actionable recommendations. In my State of the State speech, I also acknowledged the need for additional funds for our nursing homes. However, I made it very clear that those funds and my approval of those funds as governor would be contingent upon real, meaningful, and significant reform in our nursing homes. Through the work of the task force, with the help of the General Assembly, and working with members of the nursing home industry, this budget includes historic policy reforms as well as a substantial investment, all designed to incentivize all nursing homes in Ohio to improve quality of care and the quality of lives for their residents, quality of the lives of their residents. The differences that these reforms will make will be real. First, real oversight. We're going to dramatically increase our inspection teams to have more trained professionals in our nursing homes, making sure people are living with dignity in high quality and in safe environments. Real consequences. Consistently bad nursing homes will face greater penalties, and those that refuse to improve will be put out of business. Real rewards. Expectations are a two-way street. If a nursing home takes care of its residents exceptionally well, then they will be rewarded with more funding. Real resources. We are providing nursing homes with the resources they need to hire the most qualified and most compassionate people. We will also be providing technical assistance, including education, mentoring, and measurement to improve the quality of clinical care that their staffs provide. Real transparency. For individuals and families searching for a nursing home, we're going to build an easy-to-navigate website that provides detailed information about every single nursing home in the state of Ohio. This will enable families to be better informed and make informed decisions on where to place their loved ones for care. Real empowerment. We're increasing the number of resident advocates so that every resident at every facility in the state of Ohio has someone in their corner to fight for their health, for their safety, for their welfare, and for their rights. Finally, real control. We're going to keep bad actors out of the nursing home business by exercising more control over who we allow to come into Ohio to care for our people. If you decide you want to run a nursing home in the state of Ohio, you will need to demonstrate that you have the experience, the will, and the resources to take care of our people. When it comes to making life better for older Ohioans, we did not stop with our nursing homes. Our budget also includes $40 million to establish our all-new Healthy Aging Grants program. This money goes to the local communities, be run out of the Department of Aging, and the money is there to help people age gracefully in their own homes where Ohioans would like to stay. Let me turn to the second big item in this budget, and that is reading. In my State of the State speech in January, I called for, and I quote, a renewed focus on literacy and the way we teach reading. End of quote. Further, I asked the General Assembly for the resources, for the money, to provide to our local schools so that, and I quote, all Ohio children have access to curriculum that is aligned with the evidence-based approaches of the science of reading. The legislature has given us this money. The legislature has also given me a new responsibility in regard to primary and secondary education with the creation of a new cabinet agency. This cabinet agency, the Department of Education and Workforce, I accept this responsibility, and I take it very seriously. We will have many priorities in that department. Spreading the science of reading to every school in the state so that every child is taught what we now know is the best way to learn to read will be our first and number one priority. Let me turn to behavioral health. As I've said in past State of the State addresses, it's our administration's goal to make behavioral health visible, accessible, and effective, and to take this to all communities in the state of Ohio to fulfill promises that were made 6 decades ago. We're fully funding 988, Ohio's Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. This makes sure that every Ohioan has access to and is aware of this opportunity for help. We will put extra effort now in making sure Ohioans know about this line and know its availability. Further, this budget provides for families that have a child in crisis. We're making sure that that family can get immediate help in their home and follow-up care afterwards. Further, we're growing the number of pediatric mental health providers to reduce wait times for families. We'll be able also to bring youth with the most significant needs back to Ohio, those that have had to have been sent out of state to care for them. We will bring them back to Ohio to be cared for here, close to their home, close to their family. This budget also increases reimbursement rates for Ohio's behavioral health services to put that workforce on par with other healthcare professionals. Very important. This budget also provides nearly 3,000 more adults with access to inpatient care. And we're also increasing the availability of medications and other behavioral health care services in the jails of the state of Ohio. We're more than doubling recovery services to help people find healing and for them to find hope through peer support and employment. Finally, we'll start investing in mental health innovation and research to kickstart strategies that will help make sure Ohioans get better outcomes and they get them faster. This will be an unprecedented investment in research. We have found, and professionals have advised me, that this is an area where the research into behavioral health sorely lags the research in regular medical care. It's time we change that. Not only will this be long-term research, but our goal will be at the same time to make sure that what is being found in this research is made immediately available to practitioners in Ohio and across the country so that they can serve people in the behavioral health field better. I'm sometimes asked, Mike, how far along are you? How far along is the state of Ohio in regard to building this system of behavioral health? And it's kind of a tough question. My wife, Fran's family she's from a family of builders. Her dad was a builder. Her brother Ken and brother John, brother Mike were all builders. And so I have, at least from a distance, observed that business and observed families that are building houses. So maybe to make a comparison to building a house. I think we are really at the point where we are starting to frame the house. That's really the first time that you can kind of see that it's a house. But it's also a little elusive because the truth is that even once that house is framed, as anyone who's ever built a house can tell you, there's a long, long way to go. So we're starting to see results. We're starting to see the outline of this system that we're building in Ohio. But as I've said, it's not going to be built overnight. And while the framing is starting and we're going to start to see a house and start to see some of the things that are going on, we still have a long, long way to go to build the system that was promised the American people. Let me turn to housing in another aspect. In my State of the State speech, I said that in recent years we've experienced lower rates of housing construction and low vacancy rates in rental properties. This has put a strain on our housing market, especially affecting Ohioans with low and moderate incomes. And I must say that everywhere I go, when I talk to people, housing is an issue. So we started a housing conversation last year in the waning days of the legislative session. And at that time, I pledged to the people of Ohio that we would address the issue of housing. In this budget, with the help of this legislature, we did that. We are addressing the housing needs of low-income families. For the first time in Ohio's history, we are creating low-income state tax credits to build thousands of new rental properties for families. We are addressing the housing needs of our growing workforce. For the first time, we're creating a tax credit to build single-family homes, making home ownership more affordable for families. We are revitalizing and providing for the revitalization of our neighborhoods. For the first time with our land banks, we will provide funding to buy, construct, and rehab housing to sustain their rich history and rejuvenate struggling communities. We are helping Ohioans save also for home ownership. The creation of the Home Owner Savings Account in partnership with the Treasurer of the state's office will help Ohioans save money to cover the cost of down payments and needed repairs. In total, all of this provides $750 million of new investment to support Ohio's housing needs. This budget also, again, delivers for our children. We understand that the first 3 years of a child's life are absolutely the most important. And so we're continuing our historic investment in children and in families and in early childhood development. This budget expands access to quality child care to more working families, allows us to serve more children and more families with evidence-based home visiting services, provides Ohio's children's service agencies with record funding to better serve children in foster care, and makes critical investment in reducing maternal and infant mortality. Further, for the first time in Ohio history, this budget establishes a dedicated department focused exclusively on children, the Ohio Department of Children and Youth. And again, I thank the legislature for responding to my request for them to do this. Until now, the services provided by the state to Ohio children have been scattered across departments, agencies, and offices. Everything this new department will do will place children at the center of what they do. This is a big deal. This says we are serious about focusing on the future. We're serious about focusing on our kids. Let me also thank the General Assembly for appropriating money for the Imagination Library. Fran tells me that we are now at 58% of Ohio children from birth to age 5 who are signed up to receive a new book every single month. Career Tech. For many students, the path to success is through one of Ohio's very, very fine career and technical centers. My wife Fran and I and the Lieutenant Governor have visited virtually separately, but totally have visited virtually every career tech center in the state of Ohio. Ohio businesses need skilled employees, and they need them now. At our career tech centers, students are getting the skills and certifications needed to quickly fill these jobs. One of the things that Lieutenant Governor and I and Fran found, though, as we travel around the state, more and more kids going into career tech, but we found waiting lists where young people were being literally turned away. And sometimes when they got into they could get into the school, but then they couldn't get the courses they wanted or the area that they wanted to study. This budget provides resources to expand career tech programs and to launch new ones, including a one-time infusion of $200 million to build new facilities and $100 million to purchase the needed equipment. Let me talk about scholarships. In our State of the State speech, I asked the General Assembly to expand the Ohio College Opportunity Grants, also known as OCOG. I wanted them expanded so that Ohio middle-class children would, in fact, be eligible. The legislature did this. Further, I asked the legislature to create a brand new merit scholarship for the top 5% of every graduating class of high school in the state of Ohio. And again, the legislature has provided that. This is a very, very historic, I believe, budget. I'm going to ask the Lieutenant Governor to continue, and there's a few other very important items that the Lieutenant Governor will cover, certainly including funds so that we can continue to grow this state. John?
Thank you, Governor. And as you laid out in the State of the State and in the budget, you laid out our priorities, and almost all those priorities were accomplished in this budget and more. Congratulations on what you did with nursing homes. I've been around here for a long time and watched what happens there. It's been very hard to get those kinds of quality changes, and you were able to accomplish that and many other things, and congratulations, Governor, for what you're able to achieve. I echo your comments regarding the Senate President and the Speaker of the House and the Finance Committee chairs and all the members of the General Assembly who we worked with in this process. Thank you for being collaborators with us in working through this. For my part, I have tried to support all of the priorities that the governor laid out, but I mostly stayed focused on the parts of the budget that affect the economy and workforce and innovation, because I truly believe if we get these things right, we will be the best in the Midwest. And I believe we are, and we're on our way to being dominant. Why? Because if you give people a good education and good job skills, and you have good jobs available for them, and you stay focused on making sure that that's going to be there now and for the future, then you're giving people the ability to live their version of the American dream, where they can solve most of their problems without the assistance of government. And with a growing economy, you have the resources to fund other needs in society, priorities like health care, law enforcement, and services to help the people who cannot help themselves. And this budget will serve as the foundation for us to accomplish those priorities in the coming years. And let me take a moment to highlight a few of those issues and dig a little deeper into them. And I hope you, our friends in the media who are here, I hope that over the course of the next few months you'll dig into them a little bit further too. And we want to help you do that, explain how they work and why they'll be important for the people of Ohio. Let's focus first on economic development. The Ohio Future Fund, it's something that we asked the General Assembly to create and fund. They gave us $750 million for it, and what that will be used for is, I mean, frankly, it's a necessity. Ohio, the fact that Ohio is experiencing something that we have not seen in quite a while, which is businesses reshoring operations to America, and them wanting to build that domestic supply chain, Ohio, and supply chain particularly in tech and manufacturing sectors, Ohio has reestablished itself as a good place to do business. And with a talented workforce, many of these companies want to come to Ohio. However, we are running out of job-ready sites. And it's necessary to have these job-ready sites, and to make them ready, you need infrastructure to serve as a home for these opportunities. And this All-Ohio Future Fund will help prepare these sites geographically distributed around Ohio so everybody can participate in our growing economy, and that we need this funding to have ready-to-go locations for businesses to locate across our state. While we did ask for more than the General Assembly gave us, I will add that they also put in $350 million for brownfields, $150 million for demolition, $124 million for water, and an additional $500 million for rural road infrastructure. So when you combine all of those together, we believe we have what we need to create many, many more job-ready sites across the state of Ohio where businesses will be able to locate, and our friends at Jobs Ohio will be ready to market those sites and help us grow existing businesses who already call Ohio home, and bring additional businesses here from out of state. I want to focus on innovation hubs for a minute. We asked the General Assembly to fund innovation hubs. They gave us $125 million to do this, and we are grateful for that. Right now we have innovation districts in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, but we want to make sure that we have the opportunity for the innovation economy to develop in our smaller regions of the state, and this will enable us to expand the innovation hub concept to other parts of Ohio. A key component of this, so that you understand how they will work, is having lab and research space developed at these innovation hubs so that small businesses will have access to the equipment they need but could not afford on their own, which will improve the opportunity for local innovation, the local innovation economy to develop. These hubs will be focused on the capacities that each region has to be a world-class competitor in sectors like aerospace or materials like glass, polymers, and energy. All are possible concepts for these innovation hubs. It's where the entrepreneurial economy will develop along these high-tech sectors, and we are excited about what these innovation hubs can mean for our smaller regions in the state. Let's focus for a moment on education and workforce. I'm going to be a little redundant here on talking about the career tech expansion because it's so cool and so important, Governor, it needs to be discussed twice, I guess. We have, as the governor and first lady and I have toured Ohio, there's some amazing things happening at these career centers where high school students are graduating career ready, many of them already working before they leave high school. One career center was at 93% of the students had jobs before they even graduated. One career center had a graduating senior class that had already made $2 million in earnings before they even graduated high school. We've seen enrollment increase in the last year by 10,000 students. All great news, but we've run out of space. Waiting lists. We shouldn't have waiting lists. We have waiting lists. This money will be used to make sure that we can expand those facilities so that we can see enrollment growth, which means workforce growth, which means more students graduating high school, job ready without college debt, and it's a wonderful thing, and we thank the General Assembly for this. Along those same lines, we have $100 million in the Super Rapids program, which is designed for our institutions of higher education to be able to invest in the latest machinery and equipment that will prepare those students for great careers with local businesses. It's coordination with local businesses to make sure that we're supplying the training on the most modern equipment that they need. This could be, for example, in robotics or in additive manufacturing, 3D printing as it's sometimes called, or electronic vehicles, among the kinds of things that we are looking to do with the Super Rapids program to expand the capacity in our workforce. I also will take a moment to thank the General Assembly for continued funding for the Choose Ohio First Scholarship. This is a STEM scholarship I created when I was Speaker of the House. $62 million in the biennium for this. I want to thank them for this. This is for the development of STEM talent. And we know this works. If you get a student who graduates high school to go to an Ohio college or university and major in the same STEM disciplines that they're interested in, we have data now tracking this that shows that approximately 80% of those students who graduated from high school in Ohio, who go to college in Ohio, at Ohio colleges and universities, 80% of them go to work in Ohio. And that's great news to see that expanded. I also want to say that thank them for the continued expansion of Tech Cred. This is a program that gives every Ohioan free job training for an in-demand industry credential that we know that there are jobs out there for them and that will lead to a job or to a better job. And I reiterate this because, please, Ohioans, there's free job training money out there for you. Take advantage of it. Get a great skill that will lead to higher pay and more job security. Thanks to the governor and the General Assembly. I mention this because we just started this at the beginning of this administration. It's already one of the most popular programs in our state. Computer science. We wanted to give a guarantee to high school students, no matter where they went to high school, that they could get access to computer science classes. And through this new Computer Science Promise program, all Ohio students in 7 through 12, junior high and high school students will have access to a computer science education, which was an administration priority that the General Assembly supported. We thank them for that. $8 million will go to making sure that Ohio high school students, no matter where they are, will have access to a computer science course that will lead to high school credit, in some cases even college credit, if you do it through College Credit Plus. I want to also emphasize the Ed Choice expansion. The Ed Choice Scholarship was something that I created when I was Speaker of the Ohio House, and educational freedom is definitely being advanced through this work in the budget. Universal Ed Choice was fully expanded up to 450% of the federal poverty level, which is approximately $135,000 per year for a family of 4. So we've expanded it so more and more families can take advantage of the Ed Choice Scholarship, and that voucher amount is estimated to be about $6,165 for students K through 8, $8,407 for students 9 through 12, and a reduced tiered voucher plan for all of those families above 750% of the federal poverty level. There are many reasons that parents might want to have choice an education and the educational options that they would have for their children that are different than what is offered in the local public school. We love our local public schools, and by the way, I will add that there is a lot of funding in there to help support our public schools, but in many cases, families want another choice, another option. That might be for the safety of their child. It might be because of an academic offering that they can get somewhere else, or perhaps it's because of the values or beliefs that those families have. For those reasons, they may want another choice, and that option is expanded to them in this budget, and that's a wonderful thing. I do have to be a little redundant again, though, on something the governor mentioned on workforce and economic development housing. This is great. I'm telling you, housing is going to be an issue now. It is an issue now. It's going to be a bigger issue in the future, not just in the fastest growing parts of our economy, in places like Central Ohio or Southwest Ohio. I even was up in Williams County, where I grew up in rural Northwest Ohio, and one of the businesses there said, hey, we have the lowest unemployment rate in this county's history, 2.8%. We have more jobs than we have people, and we're 2,000 housing units short of being able to meet demand. So this is an issue all around our state, and it will continue to be. And so it's very important that we took a step there. Also, with the expansion of some child care options for working families and tax cuts for working families as well. All of these things to help more and more families be able to go to work, have a place to live, make Ohio attractive, because if you want a workforce, you got to have these things. And this budget expands that, but this will continue to be a growing issue for the Ohio economy, because Ohio and every state that borders Ohio is facing a shrinking working age workforce. We're all facing these demographic challenges, and the states that get this right will be attractive to people and businesses, and so we will continue to stay focused on this issue in this budget and beyond. Progress on another economic and regulatory issue. Through the Common Sense Initiative, we have a Cut the Code and Innovate the Code initiative. The governor and I announced earlier this year, and he put it in the budget, that we want to eliminate 1/3 of the administrative code. I know that seemed daunting and large, but it was necessary and possible, and the General Assembly gave us most of what we asked for in the budget on that front. We wanted to eliminate 5 million words. We're eliminating 1.7 million of them through what we're doing with the lottery, and another 1.2 million of them so with what we're doing in updating the building code. And we did not get the higher education piece, but we'll continue to work on that with them to continue to skinny up the code. And as part of the Innovate the Code provisions, we will save around $44 million over the next decade and 58,000 hours of state employee time on things like 60 instances where the current law required unnecessary physical documentation and mailing requirements. We are living the digital age. We can do things that way. Just got to catch the code up to what the world allows us to do. There are 18 other instances where the statute required information to be submitted in person, and instead we're allowing for electronic communication in another 19 instances where the Ohio statute says that you got to show up or you got to deliver something, yes, I'm not kidding you, via telegrams or video cassettes. Okay, we've kind of moved on beyond those technologies, and we're getting it done the right way. This is real regulatory reform that saves money and time for people, our customers, the people of the state of Ohio, and we're getting it done. A next piece, another thing that the governor and I talked about was the Social Media Parental Notification Act. And we struggled. The House took it out, the Senate put it in, but the conference committee got it together, and we're thankful for that. In his State of the State address, the governor talked about the root causes for mental health challenges. Well, the Surgeon General basically said, yeah, one of those root causes is social media. And this proposal will require parental permission for anyone under the age of 16 to make sure that the social media companies don't go around moms and dads that they have to get parental permission, and at the point that they sign their kids up, they can set the filters so that the parents can control what kind of things their children are seeing, because we know, don't we, Director Chris? Very important that we help these kids on this front, because we're seeing the physical and mental harm and academic performance challenges that happen because we're not taking care of social media's influence on our children. And thanks to the passage of this legislation, we are now on the verge of giving parents more say on how these big tech companies reach and interact with their kids. And I want to reiterate something that came up during the budget process. There is nothing being banned in this. This is about giving parents notification and choice about how tech companies and people across the globe reach their children, what data they can collect on them, and how, what information their children can receive. And so I just want to say thanks to all of you for being here and hearing what happened from our perspective. The governor, I'm just going to congratulate him and thank our entire team for the work they did. By the way, we're cutting some of this red tape with CSI. We're getting rid of some of those things. But I want to, because this is such a process. Starts out, what, Kim, last summer, right?
Year.
We started last summer,
More than a year.
trying to set the blueprint for what happens based on, and the governor spends, I've been around a lot of governors over time. He gets into the details. He cares about these things because he knows in every one of those line items, there's a person, there's a family, there's somebody whose lives will be changed for the better if we get it right. And so, Governor, congratulations, because I know a lot of things that have needed to happen are happening, and you led the way. So congratulations.
Well, in case you're all wondering, I'm told this is actually the budget, so this is it. Happy to answer any questions.
Governor, I saw that the $2,500 child tax deduction that you championed in the past didn't make the budget, but that some elimination on sales tax for baby items did. Do you think that's a fair trade-off, and do you believe that will actually help families in the long run?
Well, I don't know if it's a trade-off. You know, we got a lot of things in this budget to help working families. People who are trying to raise kids, they're trying to, one spouse is working, two spouses working, some of them working more than one job. You know, there's just a lot of provisions in here. We've already talked about a lot of those. You know, the tax cuts in regard to income tax, for example, that's going to help working families. You've also got what we're going to be able to do in regard to this one-time money that we're going to take for certain days to be specified when there's going to be, you know, on most every single product out there, as long as it's under $500, people aren't going to pay any kind of sales tax. So there's a lot of things in here. I look forward to working with the legislature in the future on seeing other ways that we can work on the tax code so that we can get families, working families, some additional help. One way certainly would be in a tax credit or a tax deduction for each child they have under the age of 18.
Governor, the spending in this budget reflects how well the state's doing right now financially. And while a number of the items that you talked about in this budget are one-time spending, there's specifically the tax cuts and some education items. These are presumably permanent things. If and when the state's economy starts to head south, do you think this will be a problem in the future? Well, you know, part of what we've done with this money as far as tax deduction is one time. Obviously, the money for the sales tax is one time. Look, I think these are things you have to monitor. If you look at you know, what we did on the business tax, again, we've dramatically reduced the number of businesses that are paying. That, you know, certainly works with this budget. Whether it will work with future budgets, you know, does remain to be seen. So it's something that clearly we're going to have to watch. So we will see.
to convert OE into this new department? And when do you anticipate having a director?
We'll have announcement in regard to the director shortly, and won't be too long. You know, we've already put in place, in anticipation of this budget passing, a transition group. They have been working. They're going to continue to work. So I'll be meeting with them in the next few days, and we'll get a better idea of exactly what their timeline is. But you know, again, the idea is to put a real focus on children. I'm not one for, you know, moving things around a lot in government. Doesn't always work. But after watching this for 4 years, it became clear to me that we could better serve children out of one department and one member of the cabinet who every day got up and that's all she was thinking about.
Is that the taxes, that the budget slashes nearly $1 billion for Medicaid. Any reason for this at this time?
Yeah, did you catch the question on Medicaid?
It was, the budget reduces it by about 1 million. Why is that?
The reductions to Medicaid.
Yeah, you want to take it?
So the question is the reduction in Medicaid? Okay. Yeah, so as part of the conference committee process, Director Murnix and all of our teams put together revised numbers and estimates that then form the basis on which the conference committee makes their final decisions. And so as we looked at it, and then as the General Assembly looked at it, you know, there were some differences of thinking, but they made prudent decisions based on the revised estimates that we gave them.
Governor, can you explain your vetoes with regard to the income tax cut, the sales tax holiday, and the cap?
Well, yeah, so as you know, the legislature provided for several weeks in regard to the cut or having no tax in regard to the sales tax. We looked at this and frankly can't project what that means. We don't know how much money that would be. We don't know what the sales would be. We don't know how many Ohioans would take advantage of that. We don't know how many Ohioans would not spend money for a while and then decide they want to go put it all in that period of time. So we thought that the more prudent way to do this, the legislature, as you know, at one point as it was going through the process, it was $1 billion, and then it switched down finally to $750 million. So I don't think anybody knows how fast this money would go away. So we felt that, you know, we will follow the direction of the legislature and the $750 million, but being able to set a period of time that's probably going to be a lot less than that as far as the time, see how that works, see what the numbers show, and then we'll be able to go back and have the second tranche of that the next year to make sure that we're accurate. We don't want to get in a situation where the numbers just don't come out at all, and what is supposed to cost $750 million ends up costing who knows what. So just a more prudent approach, I think. We thought it was the most prudent approach after consulting with Kim Murnix and our team. So.
What about the CAT and the income tax? I understand these were technical vetoes, but they're not
Yeah, these are
total
technical,
vetoes.
but Kim, you want to do those? Because those are really not policy, so.
Thank you, Governor. Karen, on CAT, the technical veto was made just to ensure that it was clear that those exclusion amounts, the $3 million in the first year and then the $6 million, were to apply annually, as opposed to a possible interpretation that it could have been a quarterly, which of course would have changed the threshold significantly. Dramatically, yes. And on the income tax, it was, again, kind of a technical item where there was a provision that would have provided for the tax commissioner to make future adjustments. The tax commissioner does not really have the constitutional authority, we think, to do those adjustments in the manner that was provided in the budget bill. So we thought prudent to veto that provision. Of course, we'll continue working with the General Assembly on future adjustments to the income tax rates.
The bottom line is the income tax cut stays, and also 90% of businesses won't be paying the CAT by the end of the 2-year budget cycle?
That is correct.
Director Merrick's, real quick, on the CAT, it mentions that it closes a tax planning loophole. Is that the thing you're saying annually versus quarterly?
That was also kind of a technical provision where it could have been interpreted that a single company could kind of divide into multiple corporate identities in order to avoid the CAT. So yeah, again, to discourage that, to keep kind of the current law around how they can organize that way. Thank you.
Governor, there's a provision in the budget that would add intellectual diversity centers to 5 campuses across the state. Why do you feel that was important to keep in the budget? Can you just talk about it?
Well, we want our universities to be diverse in many, many ways. We want them certainly to be diverse in thinking. I guess I'm kind of old-fashioned. I think universities should be a place where free speech reigns, ideas are many, and students can be exposed to all kinds of different things. And I think the legislature felt, and I agree, that these new entities would contribute to that.
Governor, why sign SB 21 after you vetoed language to that effect a couple of times, giving the Speaker and Senate President the power to get outside counsel?
Well, we had some expressed to the Speaker and the Senate President at that time, the first time we looked at it, some concerns about the language, and frankly, those concerns were met. And so that's the reason. Who else?
Governor, you vetoed the provision in the budget that would prevent OSU student trustees from having voting powers, but you did just say that you were a fan of the putting 5 different intellectual diversity centers on campuses. But in your veto, you said that OSU should be in charge of what's going on the campus. So which one is
Well,
it?
if I said that, I'm not sure I said meant that they should be in charge of everything on their campus, but I'm not sure that was my exact quote. But look, your question is, why did I veto the provision that the legislature put in telling Ohio State that they could not have trustees vote? As you know, the legislature had provided in the past that they could do that. So they've done that for a number of years. It just seemed to me that it's a wrong signal to send to 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that something that seemingly has worked, where they've been able to vote, now, and it was a good idea for a while, no longer is a good idea. Taking that right away, I didn't see any reason to do that. And, it seems to have worked. And I just thought it was a bad signal to send to young people that we were going to pull that right back.
Governor, could you explain your veto of doula coverage? I believe, as I read,
Yeah, that's a technical one. We're very much in favor of doulas. In fact, we provide that for that and intend to provide that. I'll let the director take the rationale, but the policy is we understand that doulas can be very, very helpful, very effective. We're for that.
Governor, so you got it right on the nose. It was a technical amendment. It finally establishes for us a regulatory framework so that we can expand the coverage and the ability to utilize doulas that we're already using on a smaller scale in Medicaid.
Will there be a timing issue with that? I mean, as soon as the budget goes into effect, that coverage will exist, or does it have to go through rules? Or
we go through the rules process, and most of it, we're expecting probably January or shortly thereafter, but we need to work with the nursing board on their, setting up the regulatory process.
Governor, why did you keep the Medicaid work requirement in the budget?
Look, that has been a consistent policy of this administration. We have asked the federal government in the past to be able to do that. So that's not any change at all. That's a consistent policy.
Governor, the One Ohio Recovery Foundation, in charge of over $1 billion in opioid settlement money, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that it has to act as a public entity. But the budget overturns that decision. It seems like a really big decision for the General Assembly to be able to overturn, especially when so many people are affected.
Well, I don't think it overturns it. I think it kind of splits the baby, so to speak. And no one is saying that the public nature of this should change. Open meetings, et cetera. So that part is we treat them as they are a public institution, but they're really not. But a policy decision, I think the right policy decision from the legislature and from me, is that these meetings should be open. The public should be able to see what is going on. So it's not a complete change in that at all.
Governor, you said kids and education were very important in this budget.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Kids
first.
and education were
Yes.
very important in this budget. But I saw the salary for teachers was only increased by $5,000. How do you expect to put kids and education first if teachers are only going to make a base salary of $35,000?
Well, this is a minimum, and I think the most important thing is that if you look at the money was provided, what happened is the Cup-Patterson was brought up to date, and then continued to be funded at the full amount. So that provides schools with that additional funds, which they certainly can use. One would expect that a lot of those would flow into salaries. We get it. Look, the teachers are the ones who are out there, make all the difference in the world. We have a few teachers in our family as well, and so we get it. It's important.
Governor, you chose to veto the vaccine exemption that would have prohibited universities from restricting students from campus and boarding. How did you reach that decision?
Well, again, that's consistent. I think those of you who have followed me through the pandemic would not be surprised by that veto. To take an example, what that basically was saying, that a university that has their housing and maybe 2 or 3 or how many students to a room, couldn't have any kind of requirement that their experts were advising them was very important. So to tie their hands and to subject other students to that seems to me to make absolutely no sense. But again, it's consistent with where I've been throughout the pandemic and the aftermath of it.
Governor, talking about consistency, tobacco legislation and your vetoing of that, can you talk to me a little bit about how you would prefer a statewide policy about it and how you continue to veto this type of legislation?
Yeah, I would love for the legislature to give me a bill on my desk that, in regard to tobacco as well as vaping, said that in Ohio we're not going to sell a product that's menthol, and we're not going to sell a product that is any other flavor. I will sign that. Again, look, this is consistent with throughout my career. Back in the United States Senate, I played a major role in trying to, deal with the aftermath of addiction from tobacco, and I was not always successful there. Sometimes we were, but certainly not always. But look, when the issue first came up in regard to, are we going to, if you'll remember, in my previous veto, I basically said, look, if we can come up with a statewide ban on flavors, that is the uniformity I would like to see. So, again, that if we can do that and do that with menthol, that would be great.
Now that the State Board of Education, now that you've taken over a lot of power from the State Board of Education, do you think that body should continue to exist in its current form in terms of the size that it is?
Well, I don't know. Look, I'm going to pass on that. I think we have to see how this thing plays out. They certainly still have functions, and I don't see any immediate need to do anything about that. So.
The transition time for Department of Kids and Youth in terms of leadership, and when you expect that all to be, it's a lot of existing programs that they're going to move. So, what's your outlook on that?
As far as which, I'm sorry?
The Department of Children and Youth.
Yeah.
And the leadership.
Again, we'll be making some announcements in regard to that shortly. We already have a transition team that's been working prior to the passage of the budget. They're going to continue to work, and we're going to do this as quickly as we can, but as carefully as we can as well.
What about what you did on Step Up to Quality and the exemptions there? Can you talk about that?
Well, again, our position is that Step Up to Quality is very important, and that's going to continue to be my position. We're going to do what we can do in that area.
Governor, another veto would allow, you vetoed a provision that would have allowed electric and gas utilities to pass on costs to customers to build infrastructure for all Ohio Future Fund sites. Why did you veto that part?
Well, I think there's other ways of doing that. And, this frankly put, too much power in their hands to make those determinations. So, I'm sorry? Utilities. Utilities. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just out of the ordinary to do that. There's certain things that do need to be worked out in that area. We do want to be in a position where, if we see something coming, that they can be forward and do the things that they need to do. We want them to be able to build out where they need to build out. This, frankly, put it directly in their hands to make those determinations. We think, frankly, that should be more of a state position when we see what is going on and where that need is.
Talking about utilities and power, do you have a statement on former House Speaker Larry Householder getting 20 years in prison?
No, look, I'm a great, I think most of you know my history as a former county prosecuting attorney. I've watched juries, I've watched judges. I believe in our judicial system. I think we should have faith in it and trust in it.
We have time for one more question.
What do you say to critics that say combining the 4 tax brackets into 2 really only benefits people who are making over $100,000?
Yeah, look, I think that if you look at the 3 different things the legislature did in regard to taxes, when you look at the income tax, there is a direct help for working families. Second, there's been an evolution, or evolution is not the right word. There's been a continuation of a policy. That was a continuation of the policy to every couple years try to continue to collapse those and move towards maybe a single figure on the tax. So I don't think that should have surprised anybody, and I think people can be fairly comfortable with that as we move forward.
Governor, if I may really quick, I know last question, the disaster declaration request for East
Yeah.
Dallas, and while we
Thank you.
have you here, you mentioned the possibility of Norfolk Southern kind of pulling away out of helping the community. Is there something that you heard or that you're seeing?
No, thank you for asking me that, because my fear when we sent that letter was that someone would think that there's something new, and there is no new news in regard to the commitment of Norfolk Southern. Just to go back a little bit, when we first started looking at this, and I know we had people say, please, make the application for an emergency declaration to the federal government. We were consistently told every time we talked to the federal government, we will turn that down. And the reason they said we will turn it down is because of the fact that Norfolk Southern was paying the bills. So, you know, they were not qualifiable, at least, under the federal law. There wasn't anything to qualify for the federal government to make a declaration. The federal government granted us the one extension. We asked for an extension. We went back and asked for the second extension. They denied the extension. So that time was running out. We still, you know, we still have Norfolk Southern paying the bills. We hope they continue to do that. We believe it's their moral and legal obligation to do that. But if some reason in the far future they stopped doing that, you know, we frankly felt we ought to at least be on record to saying, look, we don't agree with you, federal government, that when you denied the request for the extension. We don't agree with that. We think they were wrong in doing that. The only avenue we had to do is just to file it. Not a good alternative, but we did what we felt that we needed to do. So, okay, thank you all very much.
Dan DeRosa with 19 News as the governor wraps up outlining what passed, what didn't pass, what he vetoed in the $86 billion biennium budget. It covers fiscal year 2024 and 2025. A lot of issues discussed, and we're going to go over some more of that. Our 3.5 hours of news is underway on Channel 19. We'll have complete coverage of the budget and all of the breaking news and weather. Could get some stormy weather tomorrow based on the amount of heat and humidity that we're seeing. So make sure you tune in to Channel 19. Until then, I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News. Have a good afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CT